Hi everyone, Shakti here, and in this video we're going to be talking about how your intuition, your higher self, your guidance system speaks to you directly when you are in danger or when you're trying to make a decision for you to understand what's probably not the best decision for you. This has happened to me a few distinct times, and I'm going to share 3 personal stories in this video that are going to highlight what I mean by this, so that you can maybe look back on your life and see where a similar thing has happened, or you can stay, also stuff in my eye, you can stay alert to when it might happen for you in your life. Now, this is a question I get a lot from especially people who are beginning their spiritual journey, beginning to listen to their intuition, don't necessarily have a protocol for doing that, and don't know what it feels like in their body. This is going to be really valuable, so hang tight. Also, as a disclaimer, 2 of my 3 stories do have to do with VACCINE injury, back injury. And regardless of your opinion on this, I firmly stand that we are individuals and one thing does not work for everyone. And that was definitely true in my case. I did not know that at the time, and I learned that. Disclaimer number 1. Number 2 is that I also firmly believe that when experiences are not going to further our evolution on this planet, by way of some sort of lesson or learning, we don't have to experience them. That's when this safety protocol measure gets kicked in to help us avoid a potentially disastrous situation for ourselves that isn't necessarily tied into our path. Now, tragic things do happen to people all the time. And I firmly believe that I am not God, and I don't know why those things happen, but I know enough about how our soul cycles work and how our relationships to each other and to our lives work to know that there's always a story and there's always a meaning behind the things that happen, whether or not we can recognize it at the time, which I know definitely for me, there have been many circumstances where I didn't understand why certain things have happened, and it took years and years and years and years to really get that. So that's the second disclaimer I wanted to make. So let's jump right into that. All right, so before we begin, I want to make a quick announcement that I do have a few more spots open for my January Fitness Accountability Group. So if you're looking to start something new in January, you want some support, you want accountability, that's something that I love to do. It's been really valuable for myself and my life for the past 4 years. So click the details below. You'll find my latest group information in there for the group that starts January 11th. So if you're watching this past the time for enrollment for that, there's usually another group happening every single month. So you can still visit the blog site. Might be a good idea to visit and subscribe so you get updated when a new one rolls around. All right, so the primary way that we receive communication from our higher self, our guidance system, intuition, all of which works together to help us guide us through the planet when something could bring potential harm to us, is typically a physical feeling in our bodies. And the reason I think they choose physical feeling when it's like an emergency is because it's the most distracting of the things that we can experience. Typically, they'll try to get your attention first mentally. So you'll have a thought, for example, oh, I'm not going to go to work this road. I'm going to go to work on this road. Or, you know what, I'm just going to wait a few minutes before I leave versus leaving the exact same time I leave every day. Or I have an idea to call someone, or I have an idea to not go to that party or not go to that event, so I'm not going to go, okay? So that's like the first degree to which we get communication. It sounds a lot like our own thoughts, but if your mind is very busy and you're not really paying attention and you're someone that can talk yourself out of those initial instincts, it's going to go to the next level, and that is a physical sensation in your body. And this is what I'm going to give you the examples of a few stories to demonstrate how it works not only for yourself, but other people in your life. So the first one is when I was in my early 20s And I had just moved back to South Florida, where I'm originally from, and I was looking for a gynecologist. So I decided to go to the one that my mom saw. She really liked him. She'd been really amazing with him. And so I was like, cool, I'll go see this person. Everything was fine up until the moment when they sat me down in a chair to talk about how I needed to receive Gardasil. And I, at that point, was not super aware of vax injury like I am now, but I just immediately felt my stomach clench, and I was like, I don't want to do that. They proceeded to sit me down in that chair and basically railroad me with how reckless I was being, how much of a bad decision it would be to walk away and not start Gardasil that moment. How I was putting myself in danger and all of these things. I mean, the gaslighting was out of control to the point where I started to cry in the middle of a doctor's office. And that's when it started. The tears started, the physical panic attack started. I was unable to breathe. My body contracted so tight. I was like, oh, I have to get out of here. And I just ran out of that office. I'm not exaggerating. Like, I grabbed my stuff, I swung open the door and just bolted like I was running for my life. Never went back, obviously. But that's what it felt like in that moment. It felt like this intense anxiety that just bubbled up to the surface, filled my whole body, and I just wanted to get out of that situation as soon as possible. I've never had it, so I can't possibly say what would have happened had I agreed to have that treatment, but I can for sure tell you it would not have gone well, because I have received other treatments for other things later on in my life, and I didn't have that feeling. It's a very unique sensation, and it feels very urgent. Oh, I just thought of another urgent feeling I'll share. A bonus one at the end of this that's different and will help you understand. So that's one story. The second one was, I, for a long time, before I became a coach and helped people this way, worked as a massage therapist, and I was specialized in chronic pain and injury. And at one point I did mobile house calls. Now, I only ever did mobile house calls if I knew the person because they were a recommendation from someone that I knew. I was never going to go into someone's house, especially male. Hate to break it to you fellas, but y'all weird as hell. And some of y'all have some crazy ideas about what's okay or not okay. And I was never going to do that. So I had a recommendation from someone that was a friend of mine, went to school with me, to see this client. And I was like, sure. Ends up the client was in this massive apartment building, like all the way high up, which was like already making me really uncomfortable because it wasn't like a house. Hard to get out of the building. So like in my head, I'm already like, I don't know about this. And during the session, everything was like, okay, but I started to get an increasing discomfort in my body of like, I just don't want to be here. It was this feeling of, how can I wrap this up as quickly as possible? So I was obviously very distracted. I'm sure my session was not that great. He also moved, like he had the session done in his bedroom, like next to the bed, which was also very weird. He also didn't have a lot of space in his apartment. It wasn't like a huge apartment, but still weird. So I'm like packing up, and I literally, like, I didn't even let him pay me before I left. I grabbed my stuff and bolted. Again, it was that same bolting feeling out of that room. And he later like PayPal'd me or whatever. And I was like, okay. But I was so freaked out driving home that I accidentally, where I was driving through, there was a bridge. And even at night, and this was an evening session, not super late, but it was dark at the time, it cuts off, like, you know, the rails will drop down, and then, like, I don't know if a boat passes by or whatever. This is South Florida, there's boats everywhere. And I missed the like emergency signal to be careful, and that banister straight fell on my car, like right on the windshield. And I was like, oh shit, because I wasn't paying it. I was so panicked, just trying to like run for my life. And then a cop stopped me, and he saw like how freaked out I was. And I think he just like took pity on my soul. And he was like, you just gotta be more careful, and just like, let me go. But again, it was a very similar feeling of panic, this time for a different reason, but my life felt in danger again. Now, did anything happen? No. Can I say what would have happened? Had I lingered and done the usual protocols that I'm accustomed to doing with clients, especially when I'm just meeting them? I can't tell you. But that was that situation. The The third situation was when my son was receiving inoculations. He had an adverse reaction the first time when he was 2 or 4 months old. I spaced out his inoculations, followed the Dr. Sears manual, still had a reaction. Then the next time I was starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable and hesitant, but took him back, continued to schedule. At 12 months, when he was receiving his 6 months, he then had full body hives and he ended up in the emergency room as a 1-year-old, and they couldn't tell me what was wrong with him. At that point, I traced it back to the most recent inoculations he had, read the insert, figured out that was one of the side effects. I said, we are done here. But his doctor's office called me to come back, for whatever visit we were due for. And walking into that office, I started to feel the exact same sensation in my body that I felt during the Gardasil moment. It was like, get your kid out of here. Like, this is not going to go well. Do not agree to a single other inoculation or you're going to regret it. That was like such a strong feeling. So I had to fight my way out of that one. And I never went back to the office. I found a new pediatrician after that. But it was a very similar feeling, this time, not for myself, but for my kid. But it started as a rising feeling, like uneasiness turning into physical panic, where you feel very, very tight. You might get a little hot, and you just want to bolt. That feeling of just wanting to bolt, same thing. And the fourth and final story is very different. This is when we moved from Georgia, where we lived, to the Bay Area in South Florida, where we live now. So at the end of 2019, about November, I had this really strong feeling that we needed to move. And not only did we need to move, mind you, we had bought a home 2 years prior, so we were only 2 years into our first home, townhome. I had opened the year of 2019. I quit my very last job and opened my own massage practice. I was working for myself. It was going well. It was very busy. And I just had this feeling like I had to retire from bodywork for one, leave that office as quickly as I could, move to a different state, okay, specifically the one that we're in right now, Florida, and uproot our whole life. And I found a home. I put an offer on it. We got accepted for the offer pretty much immediately, which was very strange because our first home, it was took forever. And within a month and a half, we had sold our townhome and we were moving to a new state. Not even kidding. By beginning of 2020, January, we were moving into our new house where we are now. Now, the feeling that was driving that decision was another sense of urgency, but this time it didn't feel like panic. It didn't feel like physical harm was necessarily going to come to me. It just felt like an urgent, you've got to do this now. Don't wait. Do it right now. And I tend to be an impulsive person, so I have to really check this to see if it's coming out of an ego place or if it's really coming out of an intuition, but the feeling would not go away. And it was actually getting more and more intense. Well, fast forward to what we know now. Around March, the pandemic was declared and everything started to shut down. My industry of bodywork got hit crazy hard. It is now December of 2020 and it still hasn't recovered to where it was before. I would have lost everything. My practice, I would have been indebted up to my eyeballs over having that office. Turns out the building where my husband worked in Atlanta was looted and burned during the hours where he would have been in the building as well during that time. So we avoided a whole lot of heartache and a whole lot of tragedy and difficulty because of that urgent sensation that I had. And again, it was very much a physical feeling. So those are just 4 stories I wanted to share that illustrate that same physical emergency feeling for 4 different circumstances. One was about me, one wasn't about me, it was about a loved one. One was about just being in harm's way as far as being in a relationship to someone. And the other one was about making a critical life decision that was going to be really important to our general well-being. And we've been so much happier since we moved, by the way, totally changed the quality of our life, right? So you will get these emergency type feelings when you're either trying to avoid a negative situation. And in my life, it's most often been in avoidance of something that was an unnecessary negative situation to experience. Or you can get an emergent feeling towards something that's a really hardcore yes, where it's like, definitely go in that direction. But more often than not, it's a life-saving measure, and you won't have it a lot in your life, but you will have it a handful of times. And so far, those are like 4 solid times where I can count that I've had that happen in 30 something years of life, right? So hopefully this video helped you kind of think about your own life and situations where you might have felt that. And a huge part of really honing in on this is body awareness and really knowing your body and knowing when something is coming from you, meaning that you are generating it in your own mind and then it's dropping into your body, or when your body is communicating it to you. And when that is happening, it's typically a message. It's not you. It's not you generating the thing. It is information trying to come through you to be interpreted here. So instead of going from here, here, it's going from here, here. Okay, so that's a primary way that you can frame that so that you can know the difference. So if this helped you, please let me know. Leave me a comment if you have any questions, you want something clarified. Also leave a comment and I'll be sure to answer you. And as always, thank you to all my patrons who are currently on Patreon. I have decided to make a switch to Mighty Networks soon. So that's going to include a membership for Conspirifacts, as well as metaphysical stuff. And also is going to have a private circle for anybody who's doing one-on-one coaching with me to communicate with each other as well. So all of that is coming and will be launching soon. So thank you to everybody who is currently a member in one of my memberships and enjoying all the benefits. And if you want to learn more about it, as always, check the details. All right, my friends, be well.